Okay, I've been very, very blessed with good luck in the respect that timing. A lot of stuff is timing. I lived in Montana when it was at its prime. I bow hunted, areas that, have, are no longer very good. I moved, here, Iowa. I lived, 100 miles east of here for 11 years, and I've been here for 5 years, type of thing. I've been able to hunt all over the world.
Wow.
As I mentioned, if I had my life to do over again, you know, um, you know, yeah, there's a few things I wouldn't have got. I got 12 screws and 2 plates in this arm and busted this shoulder and screws in my knee, all from playing hard, type of thing, But yeah, I probably shouldn't have gotten away with that piece of equipment,
Yeah.
But anyway, real decision. I'd do the same exact thing that I did with, no great regrets at all. People think I'm really lucky, and I am in that respect, but I'm not really lucky at all. There's been many instances where it could have gone 50-50, and I'll lose just about every time. I don't understand this because Gene and I, being identical twins, this stuff happens to me all the time, and nothing ever happens to him. Like I said, he's never. I busted his collarbone one time, but he's never busted any bone. I got, like I said, 12 screws and 2 plates, and busted shoulder. The busted ribs, busted legs. All kinds of. And again, I don't know if you know any about this stuff, but I've been treed by grizz, and I've shot a lion jumping on me with the bow with, self-defense. I've fallen off of cliffs. I've been charged by hippos, black mamba encounters. Stuff. I wrote that book. Do you have a copy of that book? My book? Okay. Anyway, I wrote that book, and I hesitated writing it because I thought people wouldn't believe how many instances would just since I wrote that book, I've had, the fact that this is a pretty funny story. I got charged by 2 different feral hogs, wild boar, in the same day, and had to shoot my way out. Hand-to-hand combat type. And the first one, this guy. It was an elderly guy. He was, I say elderly. He was he might have been in high 70s or whatever. But anyway, he shot this pig the evening before out of one of my stands. I let him. It was in Texas. And anyway, we go in the next morning to track it, and which was the last day of the hunt. Anyway, we go in to track it, and here's the boar laying there on the ground, and I see Gene was on my right, and this other guy's on my left, and as I approached it, the hog stands up and turns around, and it's still alive, and and anyway, it drops its head.
Oh boy.
And charges, right? And that I did pretty good on that one, but anyway, he's coming like that, and I let him get right there, and I shot, and the arrow went like right in here and came out the armpit. I did good on that, but his momentum kept them coming, right? And anyway, and this is a good for educational wise. If you get in a situation, you throw the bow in their face, because when you throw the bow in their face, they'll fight with the bow instead of you, type of thing. So I shot, and he kept rolling, coming towards me. So I threw the bow in his face, and there was a little tree there about that big around, and I shinnied up it, and he flopped around, and in fact, when I came down, I almost stepped on my bow, he died right at my feet, right? And I said, Gene says, oh man, that was cool, he says, that would have made good video, and yeah, right, well, let's do it again, But so anyway, we get that, and that one, let me think, 193 pounds, that one was, almost a 200-pound boar, right? So that afternoon, I'm hunting by myself the same day, and I heard a
Same
hog.
bow? Same bow?
Same bow, yeah, no sweat, you know. Anyway, here comes a herd of feral hogs, right? And I make a stalk and I get in front of them, and it was a big dry sow, big black dry sow. And it comes by, and you know, I zapped her, and there was a little hill there, and it ran up this little hill, and it topped. Went over to right, I mean, just like 40, 50 yards, and it topped out, right? So I give it whatever it was, you know, 20 minutes or half hour or something like that, and I sneak over, and there's blood, and I go up in the top, and I look up, and there's the hog laying there on its side. I thought it was dead, you know, laying on its side. And I put an arrow on the string, and as I approach it, you know, all of a sudden it jumps up, and it turned and looks at me, you know, it's facing me, and I go, uh-oh. And I noticed on the one in the morning, the same thing. Right before they charged, they dropped their head, you know. Anyway, she drops her head, and I looked around, there's no trees, you know, right? There's nothing for me to climb. So it's mono a mono, right? You know, and anyway, here she comes, right? And she got, and literally, when I shot, she was about from here to that chair. I mean, you know, like
Wow.
8 feet, something like that. And I tried to brain shoot her, right? And I missed. I mean, I hit right in the bridge of the nose. The arrow hit right here, like that, and it knocked her down, but she got right back up, and she was on me, right? So I threw the bow in her face, and I turned to run, and I didn't get 2 steps, and I tripped over my own feet. You know, just a bad dream deal, right? Anyway, I tripped over my own feet, and I fall down, and I'm right in a bed of prickly pear cactus, right? A million thorns, right? And she's on me, and I'm kicking her. You know, she's flipping the bow. In fact, she flipped the bow to me one time, and I threw it back at her. She said, "Here, take that," you know. And anyway, I threw it back, and I was kicking her in the nose and the mouth and stuff like that, and she was hooking and stuff. And anyway, and it was interesting because when I was on the ground on my back, I was on my side, my back and stuff, kicking, and she was dominant. She was higher than I was, you know. But then she backed up, and I thought she was leaving, and I thought, hell, maybe she's just getting a running start, you know. So anyway, I stood up, and when I stood up, you could see the demeanor, like, uh-oh, he's taller than I am. Not much, but you know, he's taller than I am, right? And she backed up, and I reached down and I just looked her in the eye, and I grabbed the tip of my bow and took another arrow and put it in her and killed her, right? It gets better, right? So I killed her, and she just, you know, finally just walks over and tips over. She's dead, right? So we had been hunting for 5 weeks. This is the last hour of the last day on 5 weeks, right? Gene's like 5 miles away. He dropped me off, and I had a ladder stand on this water hole. So I called Gene. I got 1 bar on the cell phone, and I called him, and I said, "Hey," I said, "I just got into it again with I got charged by another boar, and I had to kill it in hand-to-hand combat. I think my arm's busted." I said, "I fell in cactus." I said, "I'm covered with thorns." I said, "I've never been so thirsty in my life." I says, "You know, can you come get me?" And he says, "Are you bleeding?" And I said, "No, I'm not actually bleeding, but I think my arm's busted." And he says, "If you ain't bleeding, you ain't needing. I'll pick you up after dark." I mean, give me a break, right? I got upset. I hung up on him and stuff, you know. And anyway, he ended up, you know, he called me back and said, right, I'll be right there, you know. And don't forget, we got to pull that ladder before we, you know, we got to pull a ladder and stuff. So I get that.
Tough love.
Yeah, right. So I get back to camp, and he would pull the thorns out of my butt with the tweezers, but he wouldn't touch you know, in other words, the little filament ones, those little, you know, big ones are okay, like a porcupine thing, but these little ones, and they would break off right at the level.
Get infected.
Yeah, well, anyway, he wouldn't touch those. So I've been gone, and my wife happened to be visiting my grandkids in Wisconsin, right? So we drive home, whatever, 14 hours, right? And I'm looking forward to finally sleeping in my own bed, even though she wasn't here. And I'm going, oh, okay, you know. I get home and I go to bed, and all those little thorns would slide on the sheets, and it was just tickling the nerves, and you know, I'm caught. So, hey, Country Boy Will Survive. So I took that silver duct tape and I duct taped my butt, right? And then I lay on, when I laid on the mat, smooth as silk, man.
Yeah.
I mean, no sweat. And in fact, the next day when I ripped the tape off and stuff, a bunch of them came out. That's another good point. So you learn from this stuff.
Yeah.
Number one, a country boy will survive, and number two, use
Always take some
yeah,
duct tape with
some
you.
duct tape with you,
Yeah.
and number three, throw the bow in their face, let them chew on
If they
that.
throw it back
Yeah,
again.
chew on that
Yeah.
for a while and stuff like that, But I can't. We kind of got carried away.
That's
on
right. What
the
I'm looking at this next one, because you bring your brother into it quite a bit. Any bucket lists?
not
that
really.
you or maybe your brother. I mean, not to speak for him, but
Not really.
we haven't done
we
this
had,
hunt or we haven't done that hunt or something. And
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, he did more exotic hunts than I did. Like, for example, he went to Alaska and went moose hunting. We went on a caribou hunt, and he hunted Dall sheep. He hunted, Africa. Oh, now that's another thing too. We used to run. That was a great deal when we had it going. We used to run bow hunts in Africa, and basically Gene ran the ones in South Africa and I ran the ones in Zimbabwe. So hunters would come for a 2-week bow hunt, and they would hunt with Gene at his camp in South Africa, and then they'd get a hopper flight and fly into Bulawayo, and I would pick them up and they would hunt at my camp in Zimbabwe. And it was different species, different camps. It would be like elk hunting in Montana and then going antelope hunting in Montana. One on a prairie and sagebrush, and the other one in the Continental Divide type of thing. Total different scenes, different species and stuff like that.
That'd be a great arrangement.
It worked excellent and stuff. And we had, outstanding world class. The camps and stuff. The one that I had in Zimbabwe. It was. White marble countertops and gold fixtures and chandeliers, and it was
Wow.
king, and anyway, it's no longer. When